Now, without going into detail about which subjects you should do for a particular degree course, what I would say is, and this is recommendation from the Russell Group of universities, so the top 24 roughly universities in the UK, although there are one or two outside of that that you wouldn't expect, St Andrews, Bath, who are obviously very good universities as well. But the advice from the Russell Group is to pick what are called 2 facilitating subjects. So 2 of your 3 subjects should be facilitating subjects. Now, facilitating subjects are just the kind of traditional subjects that we would have all expected to study at school. So you're talking your English, maths, science, geography, history, a language, that kind of thing. They're the traditional subjects, okay? So I would really recommend that 2 out of 3 of the A-levels are those. That doesn't mean that there aren't ways around it if you don't do that, but that's going to put you in the strongest position for the top universities. So then the other bit that I'm going to talk to you about in this sort of timeline before Alicia goes on to talk about content a bit more and the kinds of things you should be doing in the application, personal statement, interview preparation, is the sort of overall timeline. So if we think there are 2 main dates, one is the 15th of January, and so in the year that you want to go to university, say you've got September entry 2018, the deadline for that closes on 15th of January 2018. The deadline for Oxbridge is before that, so that's the 15th of October 2017. So this is all in year 12, of course. So then what you need to consider alongside that, there's one other, which is the 2nd of November for music courses, but often that's kind of a specialist area and doesn't apply to most people. And then if we sort of work our way back, there's the admissions test preparation deadlines to think of. So the 2nd of November for admissions test preparation, that's when those take place. So you will have handed in your application to Oxbridge and your 4 other choices on the 15th of October, and about 2 weeks later you'll have an admissions test. So that could be the LNAT for law, it might be the BMAT for biomedicine, biomedical sciences, or medicine indeed. And then what you'll have 2 weeks after that, 3 weeks after that maybe, is the interview at Oxford or Cambridge. Now, there is one admissions test that is separate to that, which happens a lot earlier in the year, which is June. So this is the actual only fixed date in year 12 that matters for you, and that's the STEP paper. And that is basically for Cambridge and Warwick, and that's for kind of maths-based subjects. So again, that's quite rare that you might need to think about that, but if you've got a son or daughter that's interested in perhaps the sciences or maths, then it's worth having that in mind as well. Now, if we talk about when you should start preparation for those admissions tests or for your personal statement, then we're talking about a couple of months in advance. So if you've got the STEP paper, then you need to be doing past papers from January, February, at probably the latest, and some intensive preparation around the skills required for that. Equally, if your test date is 2nd of November, which it is for the majority of subjects, then you want to be starting kind of June, July, doing past papers over the summer, probably getting some advice from an expert the other side of summer as to which areas they're lacking in and might need to improve in. However, if we're going to talk about preparation, I mean academic preparation, and so selection of the course, there is no real time that's too early to start that. So the skills that are tested in the admissions test and in the interview preparation are basically how agile can you be in relation to your subject. And so therefore the reading and the reflections on the reading that you're doing, and then being challenged on those reflections, really should start as early as possible. And so that needs to be something that's built into a child's education. So from year 10, 11, 12 onwards, but hopefully earlier in a child's kind of cycle within the school. That's roughly the timeline of when I would say that you should act on those things. I would also say that for the personal statement, the better you can get an idea of what should be in that personal statement, the kinds of research that you should do to then produce a good personal statement, it would be good to look at that in January, February of year 12. That's not to say you start writing the personal statement then. I would start to write that kind of over the summer and early September. But I always think it's best for the student to know what should be in that personal statement early on, because that will inform the kind of research and reflection that you do throughout year 12.
Every year I come across bright students for whom the process is unnecessarily challenging because of a late start date. For example, let's say I receive a student in my office, Sophie, who is 3 months away from the application deadline, not quite as scary as 3 days. And she announces she's thinking of applying for economics and management at Oxford. This course has an 8% admissions rate. It overtook medicine a couple of years ago as the most competitive course there on offer. In order to stand out, you need the best possible academic grades and a strong personal statement, just for starters. Now we know that the course and the university as a whole typically take students with a GCSE profile of 7 or 8 A stars. This is now going to change with the new GCSE grade revisions, of course. We also know that with economics containing a component of maths, a student holding the further maths qualification may be at some natural advantage during the admissions process. However, here we are receiving this student 3 months before the application process. We look at their school records together, and I note that Sophie's GCSEs, while good, are perhaps not the strongest that the university will be seeing. Nor did she think to take further maths, or even maths at A-level, being unsure in year 11 of what it was that she might want to study at university. Now, it's not a crime to be unsure of what you want to study when you're in year 11 and you're 16 years old. But if you can start to ask your child questions that might get them moving towards having even a cluster of subjects in mind, this could be really beneficial. For example, are they looking to study a science? If so, maths will be essential. Are they looking to read languages? If so, English literature could be really helpful in support of that application. Even better, if you start to talk to your 14-year-old about what they may want to study, it starts to contextualize the sort of GCSE results that they should be looking to aim towards. Your GCSEs and your A-levels, or your A-level predictions, form the backbone of your application. They allow you to compete. They do not win you the place. They simply let you put your hat in the ring. It's always necessary to appreciate the application's true breadth. GCSEs, A-levels, IB pre-U predictions are one factor. With regards to Oxford and Cambridge, they form part of an application process which also includes a subject-specific admissions test to be sat in advance, the personal statement, the teacher's reference, and the written work for humanities subjects, and of course, the interview or interviews, multiple. One of the reasons that we actually encourage students with quite good GCSEs to have a go at Oxford or Cambridge is that they are the only 2 universities which, by implementing all of these other hurdles, conversely give you a better chance to show off your strengths. Yes, our Sophie might not have the best GCSEs, but if she can get an amazing TSA score, she can make a sensible college choice, and she can wow the admissions tutors in the interview, she might have a good chance. Okay, let's set Oxbridge in the context of the UCAS process. You apply to 5 universities through UCAS. Only one of these can be Oxford or Cambridge. You cannot apply to both. Students wishing to apply to Oxford or Cambridge, James has mentioned this already, need to complete the whole UCAS form by October the 15th. That's 3 months before their peers. Now, this is a really significant date, this October the 15th. It is not very far into the start of year 13 or upper 6th, and it comes around really quickly. Those who have planned or organized themselves should have written the personal statement over the spring and summer, ideally, of year 12 or lower 6th. By considering what goes into this personal statement, and this is what I'm going to talk about, you can see that the real work starts 6 months prior to drafting. A strong personal statement should demonstrate your academic commitment and your excitement for this subject, both in terms of what you've studied so far, in and out of school, and what you're excited to learn at the university itself. Let's take engineering for an example. A strong student shows an awareness of the subject's foundational principles in maths and in physics. Their statement contains 3 or 4 mini topics of subject interest: suspension bridges, renewable materials. If mentioning a book or journal article, the student would point to a particularly engaging chapter, citing, for instance, bending forces. when they're considering work experience and how to write about it, this student is best served by having some familiarity with CAD, CAD, computer-assisted design, or MATLAB, a low-level coding program. This is because both of these feature in the first year of that undergraduate degree, and it shows the student's suitability to take on the challenges of the course. This is a really high-performing student here. This student has done their research, they know what they're talking about. Once your personal statement and the UCAS form have been submitted, Oxbridge students typically sit an admissions test. This year, most took place on November the 2nd, and Cambridge still reserve a few for the interview day itself. These are subject-specific or skill-set-specific tests, in the most part. Our engineer will be taking the PAT test for Oxford, the English applicant, the ELAT, the history applicant, the HAT, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. Now, the interviews themselves, these are often held in the early weeks of December, in person at Oxford or Cambridge. They can be conducted over Skype in some cases if you're an international student, and indeed some are even held abroad. Now, what really matters in this scenario? Enthusiasm, potential, your awareness of the nuances of your subject and of your course, and your capability. Often getting into Oxford and Cambridge is not just about being bright. It's about being the right match for the educational model that they are offering you. Now, you could get a slew of the top grades at GCSE. Believe me, we see these students. And you could have had 3 A stars predicted at A-level, or even attain that grade profile. But if you prefer to learn in a lecture theatre format, or perhaps quick-fire questioning is a little bit intimidating to you, this just simply might not be the best environment for you. Now, crucially, neither teaching model is better or worse. It's just about the university trying to source the students that are right for what they have to offer. Now, the great news is that even applying to Oxford or Cambridge is always a boon. This is always a good thing to do, because the process of engaging with your application will see you reading more, discussing more, stretching yourself, developing an excellent personal statement, which crucially is sent to Durham, Edinburgh, LSE, UCL, whatever your other 4 university choices might be. But it's also excellent preparation for the challenges of life to come. You're going to be facing interviews, personal preparation, and a competitive environment, all factors present in life after university. So if your son or your daughter is considering an Oxbridge application or a Russell Group application, absolutely encourage them. But also start to have those discussions early so that all the right support can be put in place, and so that the application experience can be enjoyable, engaging, and crucially successful.